Chapter 31. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The junior brother of the ninth summit is definitely not capable translator. Atlas Studios editor. Atlas Studios, someone is coming to the Netherworld cave. Jiang Lan was a little surprised when he heard the news from his master. In the past 40 years, no one had come to the ninth summit. Envied, much less to the Netherworld cave. For ordinary disciples, it was best not to approach the Netherworld cave if their cultivation base was insufficient. It was impossible for the disciples of the ninth summit not to approach. That was why it was necessary. Otherwise, why would the ninth summit not have any disciples? In truth, even if the ninth summit had recruited disciples, they would not be able to stay for long. They're coming today. Looks like I need to send these people away before I can advance my essence soul. Jiang Lan stood up and prepared to receive those people outside. He was the only disciple of the ninth summit. If he did not go, then was he expecting his master to go instead? It was obviously illogical. Before leaving, Jiang Lan came to the spirit pet egg and watered it with some spirit liquid to ensure that it wasn't malnourished. Right. It's been almost 40 years. Ever since his master gave him this spirit pet when he had advanced to the foundation establishment on the surface, the egg had not changed. There was no sign of its shell breaking. Initially, Jiang Lan was more meticulous. Later on, he began to treat it like a flower. When he was free, he would water it and change its soil. It was not any ordinary soil, but some warm soil. His master had brought it from somewhere else. He said that the temperature was very important when incubating spirit beasts. As it turned out, there was no difference. This spirit pet just wouldn't hatch. Jiang Lan was already used to it not hatching. If it broke its shell one day, he might not be used to it. However, he had checked and determined that its life force did not weaken at all. It could be a vegetative egg. As quiet as always. Jiang Lan looked at the vegetative egg and shook his head. Then, he turned around and walked out of the Netherworld cave. When he left, Jiang Lan realized that the sun had just risen. There was still half a day before those people arrived. However, he didn't mind. He went straight to the foot of the ninth summit and waited for those people to arrive. In reality, he didn't know who had come. In any case, his master had asked him to them up. They should be disciples of another peak. If they weren't disciples, there was no need for him to come. As for disciples, there was probably no one who could suppress him in terms of status. After all, he was the eldest personal disciple of the ninth summit. He would most likely inherit the ninth summit in the future. Although it was a tough job, it sounded amazing. It was still early when Jiang Lan arrived at the foot of the ninth summit. He found a place to stand and watch the changes in the clouds. He remembered that he had a spell related to clouds. The deeper one's understanding of clouds, the greater the power. It was a special spell technique known as the Rainbow Auspicious Clouds. It was a divine power that added luck, but it was a spell technique. It was not obtained by signing in, but from the records of the ninth summit. It was said that it was very difficult to cultivate. Expectedly, he had learned it. Perhaps it was because of the Taoist scripture. However, because he did not know much about clouds, he did not put it to use. Jiang Lan looked at the sky and the clouds, as if he was looking at the changes in the world. Mysteriously, he felt like he was not looking at the clouds, but at the changes in the world. At this moment, his spirit was blessed, and the clouds in the sky became rainbow colored in his eyes. It was as if the rainbow clouds would fall if he wanted to. 3 people came to the ninth summit. Every single one of them were Golden Core disciples. 2 women and 1 man. There are no seniors accompanying us this time. I heard that there have always been seniors accompanying us in the past. The first summit's disciple, Jing Ting, asked curiously. I heard that in the past, the ninth summit did not have any disciples. Now, the ninth summit has a disciple, and he's even the eldest personal disciple. Mu Xiu, a beautiful female disciple from the second summit, turned to look at the third person and said curiously, "Junior sister Longyu should know about this." It seemed like the disciple of the ninth summit went to the third summit's mystic realm previously, during the time of the accident. There is a disciple. Ao Longyu nodded calmly as she walked to the side. She was also slightly surprised that he could become a personal disciple of the ninth summit. It was said that the ninth summit had never had a personal disciple. No disciple could stay in the ninth summit for 10 years. Not even her. 10 years was very short to them, but 10 years in the ninth summit could destroy a person. That was why it was indeed surprising that this junior brother could stay in the ninth summit for 10 years. This was also the reason why they did not need their seniors to accompany them, because they did not need the master from the ninth summit to welcome them. I heard that this junior brother has an impressive temperament. Back when he was taking the Dharma treasures, he shocked everyone with a single feat. It was just that his talent was average. However, after so many years, the ninth summit should have sufficient resources for him to advance to the Golden Core realm, right? Even if he really isn't capable, he should have at least perfected the Foundation Establishment realm, Jing Ting said. The ninth summit isn't focused on cultivation, right? Mu Xiu didn't ponder over this topic and asked curiously, "I remember that there is a spell that is close to a divine power in the ninth summit. It's called the Rainbow Auspicious Clouds. If that junior brother can do it, can we ask him to perform it for us?" Rainbow Auspicious Clouds. A spell that brings good luck. Jing Ting asked in disbelief. It said that this spell requires an extremely high mental realm. Learning it is extremely difficult, let alone using it. In the past, only some of the older generation of cultivators might know how to do it. For others, learning it would have the opposite effect. That was why the cultivation technique remained in the ninth summit. Currently, in the entire Kunlun mountain, it seemed that only the master of the ninth summit would know. How old was the junior brother of the ninth summit? He couldn't know how to, right? Chapter 32. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Comprehending the Seven Colors Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios' Mu Xiu also felt that it was impossible. She had some understanding of the difficulty of this spell. Very few people could learn it. It seemed like there were other requirements other than one's mental state. It would take a lot of time. Very few people would spend time on it. It was fine if one managed to learn it after spending enough time, but most people were still unable to learn it even after spending a lot of time. This was why very few people went to Kunlun Mountain to learn the Rainbow Auspicious Clouds. It's normal if you don't know. I'm just saying. After all, the difficulty of the Rainbow Auspicious Clouds was obvious. I just feel that since he's the only disciple of the ninth summit, there must be something extraordinary about him. He might know, Mu Xiu said softly. Actually, the main focus of the Rainbow Auspicious Clouds wasn't the state of mind, but on the appreciation of the clouds in the heavens. This sort of comprehension can only be chanced upon by luck, so very few people can learn it. The junior brother of the ninth summit was still young. It is normal if he doesn't know it. It was said that the master of the ninth summit had also come to understand it by chance. It is nothing if the junior brother of the ninth summit does not know it. It would be abnormal if he knew, said Ao Longyu calmly. She did not mean anything else by that. She was just stating facts. This was to prevent others from thinking that the Rainbow Auspicious Clouds belonged to the ninth summit and that the people from the ninth summit should know it, that they were not talented if they didn't know the spell. It shouldn't be anything personal. Indeed. Besides, the junior brother of the ninth summit has limited talent. He probably spent all of his time cultivating. Wasting so much time cultivating the Rainbow Auspicious Clouds is not a wise move. Jing Ting nodded and said. Ao Longyu glanced at him without saying anything. Speaking of which, I heard that if someone comprehended the Rainbow Auspicious Clouds, there would be a rainbow in the sky. Mu Xiu looked up at the sky and continued. Just like that. Brilliant, and dazzling. Mu Xiu paused before she was stunned for a moment. She said in shock, "Isn't this a rainbow? Did it rain today?" Jing Ting and Ao Longyu were also looking at the sky. They also saw the rainbow that suddenly hung in the clouds. It was no different from a normal rainbow after rain. If they hadn't been discussing the rainbow auspicious clouds, they definitely wouldn't have felt anything about it. However, this phenomenon appeared just as they were discussing what kind of phenomenon would occur after comprehending the rainbow auspicious clouds. It was hard to accept for the moment. It is just a coincidence, and this is a rainbow above the 9th summit. Besides the three of us, there's only the 9th summit's master and junior brother at the 9th summit. That master has already comprehended the spell, and that junior brother should be here to pick us up. It's impossible for him to be cultivating right now. Jing Ting analyzed for a while before coming to a conclusion. So, it must be a coincidence for a rainbow to appear today. Yes, that's for sure. Mu Xiu smiled. She felt that she was overthinking this. What kind of phenomena will follow after? Ao Longyu suddenly asked. After that. Mu Xiu thought for a moment and said, "It seems like those who have comprehended it will have a rainbow glow on them." Like that. Ao Longyu pointed at the figure in front of them. At that moment, Mu Xiu and Jing Ting immediately looked over. They saw a man standing in front of them, looking at the sky. A rainbow glow flashed across his body, but it was just a flash, like an illusion. Mu Xiu and Jing Ting were stunned. Surely not, right? Did someone really comprehend the rainbow auspicious clouds? They must have been hallucinating earlier. Or perhaps, comprehending the rainbow auspicious clouds would not result in such a phenomenon. The other party was too young. He had only cultivated for 30 to 40 years. He had only perfected the foundation establishment realm. Jianlan came back to his senses. He felt that he had a new understanding of the rainbow auspicious clouds. When he had time, he could experiment it on his vegetative egg. He didn't feel like it had much of an effect. At this moment, Jianlan saw three people standing in front of him. One man and two women. He seemed to have seen one of the women before. Ao Longyu. Jianlan immediately recalled. There were no longer any marks on Ao Longyu's face. She had most likely recovered fully from her injuries. As for the other party's appearance, it hadn't changed at all over the years. Her face was as calm as ever. Jianlan had never seen the other two before. However, it was certain that these three people had very high cultivation levels. Moreover, he wasn't sure if it was an illusion, but he could sense that the physical strengths of these three people were very strong as well. Greetings, senior brother and senior sisters. Master has asked me to bring you all to the Netherworld cave. Jianlan spoke neither humbly nor arrogantly. His master asked him to pick some people, but he did not specify how many. It's just the three of us. Thank you, junior brother, Ao Longyu said. Senior brother and senior sisters, please follow me. Jianlan led the way. Jianlan walked in front while the others followed behind. Although this junior brother had only perfected the foundation establishment realm, Ao Longyu and the other two were still guests after all. Meanwhile, Jing Ting and Mu Xiu, who were following behind Jianlan, looked like they wanted to say something but hesitated. They had witnessed the scene earlier on, so they wanted to ask what was going on. Did he really comprehend the rainbow auspicious clouds? Ao Longyu walked with a calm expression, as if she didn't care about anything at all. Especially since she had no responsibilities, she didn't have to care too much. Junior brother, do you know why we're here? Mu Xiu asked Jianlan. Master never told me. Jianlan shook his head calmly. He really did not know why these people had come to the Netherworld cave. It was not a good place. Staying too long was not good for one's cultivation. Even if these people were also practicing the Kunlun Heart Sutra, they still could not escape the side effects of the netherworld cave. Without sufficient resistance, one could easily go berserk. From then on, everything could be destroyed. We will be staying at the entrance of the netherworld cave for a few months, so we might have to disturb you during this period of time, junior brother, Mu Xiu spoke. Jianlan glanced at his senior sister and shook his head. Senior sister, if you're only going to be at the entrance to the netherworld cave, you wouldn't be disturbing me. I live in the netherworld cave. Master doesn't usually give orders, so I don't normally come out of the cave. Mu Xiu was taken aback. Even Ao Longyu was surprised. What kind of place was the netherworld cave for this junior brother to live in there for such a long time? Would he really not go berserk? Even if he had a good temperament, he couldn't go this far, right? Jing Ting and the other were also very surprised. Could it be that this junior brother had already gone mad? Because of Jiang Lan's words, none of them knew how to continue the conversation. Therefore, they couldn't ask Jiang Lan about the situation earlier. Mu Xiu really wanted to ask about the rainbow auspicious clouds. Soon, Jiang Lan brought them to the entrance of the netherworld cave. Senior brother and senior sisters, do you want to go in and take a look? Jiang Lan asked. Please lead the way, junior brother, Jing Ting said. Jiang Lan's talent was ordinary, and his cultivation level was extremely low to them. However, he was the eldest personal disciple of the ninth summit. If they did not give him any face in the ninth summit, then they were basically rejecting the chance to use the netherworld cave to cultivate. Jiang Lan nodded and led the way. This is the first time you're entering the netherworld cave, so it's best to put up some defenses. Otherwise, you could easily be attacked by the netherworld aura, Jiang Lan reminded kindly as he walked in front. Ao Longyu and the others followed Jiang Lan into the netherworld cave. However, they were shocked upon entering. The thick netherworld aura surged towards them. They had a feeling that without protection, they would be greatly affected. Forget about staying in such a place for a long time. Even staying a little longer now would have a significant impact. However, when they looked at Jiang Lan, they felt that it was unbelievable. Chapter 33 You are listening at novelfull.audio. One Step Closer to Immortality Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios When they looked at Jiang Lan, they discovered that Jiang Lan didn't have any defenses up at all. He simply walked amidst the netherworld aura. The netherworld aura was unable to affect him in the slightest. It was as if he had fused with the netherworld aura. They did not interfere with each other. Was this his temperament? What level of mental fortitude was needed to achieve this? Disregarding the influence of the netherworld aura, his heart was as calm as a mirror and as flexible and tolerant as water. Whether it was Ao Longyu or the others, they had only heard that the disciple of the ninth summit had an extraordinary temperament, but they had never faced his extraordinariness directly. Seeing him today, it was truly better to see it for themselves than to just hear about it. It was not without reason that this junior brother could stay in the ninth summit and possess such cultivation resources. If the others had half of this junior brother's temperament, they would be able to stay in the ninth summit, right? What sort of disposition does junior brother possess to be able to walk so casually in the netherworld cave? Jing Ting couldn't help but ask. Jiang Lan glanced at the three of them before shaking his head. It doesn't have much to do with one's temperament. I'm just used to it. Jing Ting and the others didn't believe it. This netherworld aura was not something that could be easily gotten used to. If he was really used to it, it would definitely have something to do with the netherworld creatures. For example, cultivating the netherworld cultivation techniques. But anyone could tell that Jiang Lan had cultivated the Kunlun Heart Sutra. There was no sign of him being affected by the aura of the netherworld at all. This was something that could only be done by stabilizing one's mind and not being disturbed. Jiang Lan didn't care whether they believed him or not. In any case, he had gotten used to it bit by bit. The improvement of his temperament only made it easier for him to get used to it. Jianglan then brought the three of them to the netherworld passageway. It was still that well. We're here. The well connects to the netherworld, but we can only look at it directly after becoming immortals, Jianglan explained. Ao Longyu and the others nodded. They had no intention of checking the well. Only those who achieved immortality could do so. They were still a distance away from immortal ascension. However, they also saw that there was a small house in the netherworld cave. It looked like there was really someone living there. This junior brother really lives here. Wasn't this too terrifying? After giving them a rough understanding of the netherworld cave, Jianglan paid them no mind. They were going to be outside the cave and would only enter occasionally. After they left, Jianglan returned to his small room. As there were people, he planned to advance the Essence Soul realm 2 days later instead. 2 days passed in a flash. Jianglan was still sitting in the netherworld cave. Indeed, those people had not entered the netherworld cave. It did not affect him much. As for why they came, he roughly understood. It was to temper their spiritual consciousness. They were all experts in body tempering. Those two were cultivating related cultivation techniques, while Ao Longyu was a dragon. Her body was strong to begin with. They obtained some things from the peaceful void lake and had sufficient conditions to use the netherworld aura to temper their essence soul. The limit of their tempering was around the entrance of the cave. As for how long it would take to temper their spiritual consciousness, Jianglan had no idea. But it didn't matter since it didn't affect him. After erecting a wooden tablet at the entrance of the cave, Jianglan took out the creation pill. Today, he was going to advance his essence soul. After the essence soul, his strength would not longer be considered weak. He could find a new place to sign in. Of course, it was impossible to leave Kunlun Mountain. It was too dangerous outside, and his master would definitely not allow it. Speaking of which, he was already at the perfected foundation establishment realm. His master would most likely let him go to the third summit's mystic realm again. Whenever he perfected a realm, his master would always think of ways to help him break through. Therefore, it was safer to advance earlier. Who knows what would happen if he bumped into the person behind the scenes again? With this thought in mind, Jianglan swallowed the creation pill. After the creation pill entered his mouth, Jianglan felt as if he had entered a mysterious door. Everything beyond the door could answer his current doubts and remove all obstacles for him. At this moment, Jianglan's cultivation began to circulate madly. All of his spiritual consciousness condensed into everything, as if it had undergone a completely new transformation. It was as if a plate of loose sand had started to solidify into the shape of a human. Boom! After his spiritual consciousness turned into a human form, Jianglan's mind began to expand. It was as if his limited spiritual world was expanding infinitely. The blurry areas began to become clear. His originally calm mind suddenly became indestructible. This was the essence soul. Although there was no physical change in his strength, his spiritual consciousness had surpassed what it was before. Even if he was invaded by inner demons, there would be enough buffer time. It was as if he had become resilient. Even if his body was destroyed, his essence soul would not be destroyed immediately. If he protected his essence soul, he would have a chance to return. This situation continued for a long time. Jianglan could feel that he had become much stronger. The power of 5 bulls was directly upgraded to the power of 6 bulls. It could even continue to rise. The 9 steps of heavenly travel had also begun to undergo a completely new transformation. This was the essence soul. If the golden core realm represented a child turning into a youth, then the essence soul realm represented a youth becoming an adult. Above that was the void refinement realm. He tempered his essence soul, connected to the void, and found the door to immortal ascension. He had to transcend the tribulations to become an immortal. Of course, what Jianglong needed to do now was to continue cultivating, reach major perfection in his essence soul, and then step into the void refinement stage. Even though he was one step closer to the immortal path, the further he went, the harder it became. As for the creation pill, although Jianglong felt that it was a pity, he didn't regret it. How strong he was now was the real strength he possessed. As a dragon, Ao Longyu's cultivation speed was extremely fast. If he was targeted, he would be in danger. If the person he fought with before suspected him and targeted him, then it would be too late to eat the creation pill. After that, Jianglong didn't think too much about it. What he needed to do now was to continue cultivating and break through to the void refinement stage. However, he wanted to find a new location to sign in. Let's go to that old wine tavern. I can bring master a pot of good wine as well. 30 years have passed. I wonder if that inn is still there. Chapter 34. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Repelling the sword with one finger. Translator. Atlas Studios editor. Atlas Studios. Jianglong went to his vegetative egg and poured some spirit liquid over it. Then he headed outside. Having advanced to the essence soul realm, he could see his surroundings much clearer. It was as if he had gone from a normal resolution to a high resolution. But it did not affect anything. When he arrived at the cave entrance, Jianglong put away the wooden tablet. There were 3 words written on it: "Do not disturb." There was no need for that now. After all, he had successfully advanced. Jianglong walked out. The sky was already bright. Ao Longyu and the others were working together to draw an array formation. It was probably used for their cultivation. Jianglong took a look and discovered that it was the bright deity array. It was similar to his immovable wisdom king incantation, but completely different at the same time. There was a huge difference between array formations and incantations. Of course, if one wanted to stay in the 9th summit, it would not be enough just cultivating the immovable wisdom king incantation. It was because he had obtained the Kunlun Heart Sutra and cultivated the meditation spell. Following that, he cultivated the immovable wisdom king incantation. That was why he could stay in the 9th summit so easily. As for whether the others could stay like this, he didn't know either. Perhaps because he had lived 2 lifetimes, it was easier for him to see things clearly. Junior brother is going out. Jing Ting looked at Jianglong. Jianglong nodded and said, "I shan't disturb the senior brother and senior sisters any longer." Then, he turned around and left. However, after taking a few more glances at the bright deity array, specifically the location beneath Jing Ting's feet, he felt that something was off. Is there a problem with the array formation? Jing Ting looked down at the array formation beneath his feet and asked curiously. He felt that this junior brother was probably curious about the array formations. After all, this array formation was not simple. However, he didn't ask if the other party knew about it, as he was looking out for his junior brother's emotions, so that they could also stay here longer. Jianglong didn't say anything. He just shook his head and headed down the mountain. Watching Jianglong leave, Jing Ting asked curiously. Is this junior brother curious about this array formation? Ao Longyu remained silent as she continued to draw the formation. I feel that this junior brother is a man of few words and his expression is lacking. Apart from being unaffected by the netherworld aura, there doesn't seem to be anything special about him. However, the disciples of the 9th summit always have average talent. It was normal for one to have less knowledge due to their lower cultivation. Perhaps the rainbow glow from before was really a coincidence. We haven't had the chance to ask either. If he doesn't how to do it, it will seem like we are insulting him. Mu Xiu shook her head and didn't say anything else. Just because your talent isn't good doesn't mean you lack knowledge, Ao Longyu expressionlessly said. She was telling the truth. The others didn't refute and continued their array formation. They could begin to cultivate before the sun set today. They could stay here for a long time. It would be even better if they could borrow the aura of the netherworld to perfect the golden core realm and break through to the essence soul realm. However, it was a little difficult. Jiang Lan felt that there was probably something wrong with the bright deity array. However, those people were all geniuses. They should be able to tell when the time came. There was no need for him to disturb anything. They should not interfere with one another. Following his usual pace, Jiang Lan arrived at the foot of Kunlun Mountain. He was in no hurry to leave the mountain this time. After all, good wine could only be bought in the afternoon. He was going early because he wanted to sign in. Also, he wanted to see what he could get. He hoped it would be something good. Jiang Lan walked in the forest. He realized that the road here had changed after 30 years. However, the changes were not big. However, halfway there, he realized that a rabbit was coming towards him. It was a rabbit with cultivation. It was at the perfected foundation establishment realm, just that it had a messy aura. It was probably due to its serious injuries. Jiang Lan originally didn't plan on paying attention to the other party, but as soon as it appeared in front of him, the rabbit knelt down before him like a human. Ha! Looking at the rabbit, Jiang Lan frowned. He discovered that there were cracks on the rabbit's chest, as if it had been burnt. Its injuries were still throbbing. After Jiang Lan stopped, it suddenly kowtowed while pointing to the other side of the forest. It was as if it wanted to show him something. Since it was still early, Jiang Lan spoke. Lead the way. The rabbit revealed a look of gratitude and kowtowed once more. Then, it led the way. Jiang Lan soon saw it. He saw a woman lying in a certain valley. From a distance, she looked like a simple woman. There was a glowing pearl beside her. It was the demon-suppressing pearl. It was not a powerful Dharma treasure. It only had effect on demons in the Foundation Establishment realm. That demoness should be in the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. In theory, she shouldn't be so weak. However, she was not dead. But if she had been suppressed by the suppression pearl this whole time, it would have brought about quite a big impact. Of course, the most dangerous person should be the owner of the demon-suppressing pearl. It seems like this rabbit wants me to take away the suppression pearl. Jiang Lan walked up to the pearl and examined it. The owner of the pearl hadn't appeared for a long time, so this didn't seem normal. After sensing it, he discovered that there was actually nothing wrong with this pearl. At this moment, Jiang Lan felt an attack surging towards him. The rabbit suddenly squeaked and kept tugging at Jiang Lan's pants. As if to remind him of something. Jiang Lan ignored it and looked towards the forest. At this moment, the glint of a sword flashed past. A sword was heading straight for Jiang Lan. Facing the sword, Jiang Lan merely raised his hand and flicked the back of his index finger. Clang! The sword was repelled by Jiang Lan's finger. A man then landed in front of Jiang Lan. Chapter 35. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Vicious Beast Cheong Chi Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. That man landed on his feet as his sword fell to the ground at the same time. Perfected Foundation Establishment. The moment he saw the other party, Jiang Lan knew his cultivation realm. Relatively speaking, it was similar to him. Jiang Lan hadn't used any power that surpassed major perfection just now. Therefore, the other party wouldn't think that he was hiding his cultivation. However, he didn't know if the other party was a disciple of Kunlun Mountain. It wasn't unusual for there to be other people under Kunlun Mountain. As long as they didn't go near Kunlun Mountain, no one would care. However, if they were a little closer, they would know that Kunlun was not called the ancestor of all mountains for nothing. Junior brother, they are my praise, that man immediately spoke the moment he landed. Then, he introduced himself. I am Liao Yen of the 5th Summit. Who is junior brother? Jiang Lan didn't answer this question. Instead, he looked at the demon-suppressing pearl and asked, this is yours? Did he think he would just believe the other party when he said he was from the fifth summit? It wasn't like they were on Kunlun Mountain or meeting in a normal setting. Therefore, he did not intend to introduce himself. Yes. As he spoke, Liao Yen reached out his hand. The demon suppression pearl returned to his hand. I hope this junior brother will not steal my credit. Jiang Lan looked at this person's hand and realized that there seemed to be a lot of hair on the back of his hand. When Jiang Lan took a closer look, the other party immediately withdrew his hand. Junior brother, do you have any other questions? No, Jiang Lan turned around and left. Since they were someone else's praise, he did not intend to interfere. Furthermore, the other party looked like he was only at the perfected foundation establishment realm. However, there was a strange aura coming from this person. It was not suitable to cause a dispute. But just as Jiang Lan was about to leave, the rabbit grabbed the corner of his clothes. Ignorant fool. Liao Yen directly sent the rabbit flying with a palm strike. These words were said to the rabbit, but it felt like they were directed at Jiang Lan too. However, Jiang Lan didn't care about this. He only turned back to look at the rabbit and realized that there was a pleading look in its eyes. It was as if it was begging him to stay, seeking his help and compassion. Without any unnecessary movements or words, Jiang Lan turned around and left. Liao Yen looked at Jiang Lan who left, and then at the fur on the back of his hand that was retreating. Then, his eyes flashed with killing intent. Jiang Lan, who seemed to have already left into the distance, could still feel the killing intent and knew it was targeted at him. I hope you two can hold out until dark. Jiang Lan muttered to himself. Now, he planned to go to the inn to buy wine. He would sign in at the same time as well. However, it was really not peaceful at the foot of the mountain. Thinking about it, even Kunlun Mountain wasn't orderly, let alone the foot of the mountain. It was simply unimaginable in the grand desolate world. Before long, Jiang Lan arrived at the old inn. There were still no customers when he entered. What surprised Jiang Lan was that the elder was there. Jiang Lan came to the counter and said softly. Senior, 1 bottle. No, 2 bottles of good wine. He had barely spent any money over the past few decades. As a personal disciple, he could receive some as well. So he could afford it. The elder looked at Jiang Lan and immediately recognized this person. He smiled and said, the last time we met was 30 years ago. I heard from the little fella that you were the one who reminded him that the wine bottle was about to drop. Jiang Lan thought for a moment, then nodded. I was being too nosy. He didn't know how the other party felt about this, but he still remembered it after 30 years. It seemed like he cared about it quite a lot. It was only right for him to apologize. Although he didn't know what he did wrong, he thought about it carefully and remembered that the bottle was specially arranged. Of course, it shouldn't be a big deal. Otherwise, he would have been found long ago. After all, even he, who had advanced to the Essence Soul realm, was unable to see through this senior. He was not much worse than his master. Grandpa, I caught the ice cicada you wanted. At that moment, a child ran in. It was a youngster. Jiang Lan recognized him at a glance. He was the youth who looked after the store 30 years ago. It was also the youngster he informed when the bottle was about to drop. But Jiang Lan was confused. After 30 years, why did the other party still look the same as before? It was as if time had not left any traces on his body. Big brother, long time no see. That youth spoke. At this moment, he handed a snow-white ice cicada to the old man. Jiang Lan glanced at the ice cicada and realized that it really was one. Ice cicadas were bone-chilling. Yet this youth was grabbing it bare-handed. Find this strange. The elder took the ice cicada from the youth's hand and saw Jiang Lan's puzzled expression. A little. Jiang Lan nodded. Go to the back and wash your hands. The old man sent the young man away and placed the ice cicada in a wine gourd. Are you wondering why he hasn't changed, or are you wondering why he can grab the ice cicada with his bare hands? Both. As far as I know, even ordinary golden core cultivators can't catch ice cicadas with their bare hands. Only extremely few people who have tempered their bodies or have special physiques can do so. Jianlan still had a basic understanding of the ice cicada. Have you heard of Cheong-chi? The old man closed the wine gourd and continued, good wine needs to wait. Vicious beast Cheong-chi. Jianlan didn't mind waiting. He was curious about Cheong-chi. According to the elder, that child must have a certain relation to Cheong-chi. Chapter 36. You are listening at novelfull.audio. An incredible disciple translator. Atlas Studios editor. Atlas Studios. He had heard of Cheong-chi. However, the Cheong-chi that he knew was notorious and only liked to be with villains. So what did Cheong-chi have to do with this child? What do you think will happen if we let Cheong-chi raise a human child? The old man looked at Jianlan and asked with a smile. Jianlan thought for a moment before shaking his head. Although he had some guesses, he did not say anything. It will have bloodline effects and the child will more or less have some of Cheong-chi's characteristics. The elder took out a plate of peanuts and continued, with the emergence of primordial chaos, ferocious beasts were born into this world. As they had seized the good fortune of the world, it was difficult for time to leave any traces on their bodies. It was extremely normal for a dream to last thousands of years and for one to live hundreds of years. Jianlan was shocked, but he didn't say anything. In other words, because of Cheong-chi's bloodline, the teenager watching the shop could not grow like a normal person. Other people age a year every year, but he would only age a year after 1,000 years. From this, Jianlan learned one thing. This elder was definitely not simple. After all, he dared to say such things casually and didn't care about anything else. This is for you. The old man pushed the plate of peanuts to Jianlan and asked curiously, right? Which peak are you from? I'm the 9th Summit's personal disciple, Jianlan, Jianlan said respectfully in a low voice. The 9th Summit. The old man was slightly surprised, but then he felt relieved. No wonder. Then the old man put away the plate of peanuts and smiled. I'm no longer giving you these peanuts. Jianlan was silent. He did not quite understand. Did this senior have any conflict with the 9th Summit? Or did he have a grudge with Master? Jianlan didn't know. But he didn't care. Then, he quietly retreated to a corner and sat down, waiting for the good wine to be ready. Fortunately, the other party did not say that he would not sell him alcohol. After sitting down, Jianlan immediately started to get down to business. One of the main reasons for coming here was to sign in. Soon, he heard the system's voice. Ding! Signed in successfully. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the gift of the Great Tao. You've obtained the immortal wine, Bejeweled Nectar Wine. Bejeweled Nectar Wine. 10. Your nectar, 100. Your good wine, 1,000. Your immortal brew. You'll be drunk for 3 years with 1 drop, dream for 10 years with 1 mouthful, forget 100 years with 1 bottle. After waking up from a dream, your essence soul will be clear as you enter the void to search for the immortal gate. After the system's voice disappeared, Jianlan finally understood what the introduction meant. Does this mean I can cultivate the void refinement stage after drinking this bejeweled nectar wine? Jianlan was in disbelief, but he checked the bejeweled nectar wine. There was only 1 mouthful of wine. Was this a mouthful or a bottle? If he counted this as 1 bottle, would he be drunk for 100 years? He would be able to cultivate the void refinement stage in 100 years. It did not seem like a loss. But can't be sure if it's possible to reach the void refinement realm at any time, or if it's only possible after perfecting the essence soul realm. The introduction was not clear enough. He needed to figure it out himself. If he made a mistake, he would miss the opportunity to break through the bottleneck. But no matter what, this wine was very useful to him, although it could not compare to the creation pill. After that, Jiang Lan didn't pay much attention to it and didn't ask anyone for the time being. He would check for more information first. In theory, this was an opportunity for him to break through to the void refinement stage. However, it might take 100 years. Especially if it's achieving major perfection in 100 years while being drunk throughout. It didn't seem feasible to him. Without thinking too much, Jiang Lan closed his eyes, his heart calm. At this moment it was as if he was sitting on a clear lake without any ripples. In this state, Jiang Lan could wait for a long, long time. He was neither arrogant nor rash. Drip. The sound of ripples suddenly entered Jiang Lan's senses. He didn't open his eyes, but he could suddenly see the inn. Or perhaps the inn had broken into his heart and replaced his lake. Jiang Lan looked towards the counter. He saw the owner holding a wine bottle and signaling to him. As if to say, "Your wine is ready." The next moment, the inn disappeared and Jiang Lan returned to the calm lake. Confused, Jiang Lan opened his eyes. Then, he heard the boss's voice. "Come over here to pay." Hearing the voice, Jiang Lan stood up and walked over. However, he was a little shocked. Impressive. He actually entered my mind without anyone knowing. If he wanted to kill me, Jiang Lan felt that there was no way he could avoid that. Indeed, it was too dangerous at the foot of the mountain. There were plenty of people that concealed their cultivation. However, Jiang Lan didn't show it on his face. Instead, he went to the counter and paid with spirit stones. 2 bottles of good wine. Take them. The boss smiled. Jiang Lan kept the wine after taking them. He was planning to leave once he said his thanks. Unknowingly, it was getting dark. Perhaps his return this time would not be smooth. He needed to be prepared. "Big brother, wait." Just as Jiang Lan reached the door, the young man handed over a small bag containing a lot of peanuts. Jiang Lan was stunned. There were more peanuts in here than on the plate earlier. "This is," Jiang Lan was confused. "It's for Big Brother. Your wine will taste just right with these peanuts," the young man explained. Actually, what Jiang Lan wanted to ask was, why did he give it to him? When he looked over at the counter, he saw that the old man, the owner of the inn, was cleaning up with his head lowered. Helpless, Jiang Lan took the peanuts and thanked him. "Thank you." After Jiang Lan left, the old man looked up. "Amazing, amazing. Mo Jingdong accepted an incredible disciple." Chapter 37. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Look behind you. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. The innkeeper watched Jiang Lan leave, unable to conceal the astonishment in his eyes. Although his talent is lacking, it's enough. Perhaps it's because his talent is slightly inferior that makes him so extraordinary. In the end, it's hard to have both. No wonder Mo Jingdong didn't look for new disciples these few years. "Grandpa, what are you mumbling about?" The young man came to the counter and asked curiously. "I'm thinking that you're no longer young. It's time to begin your special training," the innkeeper said, looking at the young man. The youth was confused. No, he was still very young. Jiang Lan kept the items, still unable to comprehend the inn owner's attitude. He clearly took back the peanuts, but in the end, he gave him even more. What was he doing? Did he have too many peanuts and they were going to expire? Jiang Lan didn't know, but he would go back and ask his master. Perhaps he would be able to understand better. Of course, before he went back, he needed to take care of some things. Not long after he left the inn, someone had been following him. And they were using something to lure him to a more remote place. After confirming that the other party was only at the perfected foundation establishment realm, he followed the other party's tricks and slowly walked towards a remote area. A place where no one would pass by. When he arrived, Jianlan sensed that there were people lying in ambush. In the end, Jianlan stopped at the mountain stream. There were two people in front of him. One of them was a woman on the ground. She was injured and was wearing plain clothes. Jianlan remembered that it was the demoness he saw earlier. Beside the demoness was a bludgeoned rabbit. Its chest seemed to be burning with flames and was covered in wounds. Not only that, the fur on its body was almost all stripped off, as if it had been tortured. As for the other person, it was naturally the person he had encountered earlier. He called himself a disciple of the fifth summit, Liao Yen. Junior brother, we meet again. You don't look very surprised. Liao Yen smiled at Jianlan. At this moment, they had already surrounded Jianlan. Does senior brother need something? Jianlan asked. Jianlan really didn't understand why the other party was looking for him. Of course, there had to be a reason to kill him. Did he know too much, or did he find him an eyesore? There had to be a prerequisite. Junior brother, do you know about these two demons? Liao Yen lowered his head and looked at the two demons before continuing. I have something that they stole, but I couldn't find it on them. And these two demons have only come into contact with you. Junior brother should know where it is, right? I don't know, Jianlan answered directly. Liao Yen didn't mind Jianlan's denial. He only said, then I want to ask you for a favor. I want to borrow something from you. My life? Jianlan asked. Liao Yen remained quiet. Jianlan's answer surprised him. Junior brother seems to be fearless. Do you think I can't do anything to you because we're all at the perfected foundation establishment realm? Liao Yen didn't frown. He felt that Jianlan's behavior was a little abnormal. No. I'm just curious as to why you want to kill me. Jianlan's voice carried no emotion. Instead of answering, Liao Yen looked behind Jianlan and suddenly said, Junior brother, look behind you. After the other party's reminder, Jianlan looked back. At this moment, Liao Yen moved. His hand immediately transformed into a demonic sharp claw as he reached for Jianlan's neck. Jianlan was still looking behind him. Liao Yen wanted to make use of this opportunity for a sneak attack when the other party was not paying attention. Attacking openly would bring unnecessary trouble. It was too easy to be seen on the road back. This was the most suitable place to take action. Except when he thought he was about to succeed as he saw that his claws were only 3 inches away from Jianlan's neck. He couldn't move. What does senior brother want to do? Jianlan turned around, one hand grabbing Liao Yen's arm. Liao Yen wanted to break free, but he could not. He was in disbelief. He had used all his cultivation and did not underestimate his opponent. Why? Why did his opponent block his attack so easily? The moment Liao Yen spoke, a crisp sound was heard. Crack. It was the sound of an arm breaking. Splat! Liao Yan's arm was ripped off by Jianlan. Then, he threw it on the ground. Liao Yen retreated and looked at Jianlan in shock. How is this possible? How can you be so powerful? He could clearly feel that the other party had twisted his arm effortlessly. Look behind you. Jianlan spoke up. Do you think I'll believe you? Liao Yen said coldly. He had only lost an arm. It did not mean that he needed to fear anything. However, he was momentarily shocked. You have to believe it. A cold voice sounded behind Liao Yen. It was Jianlan's voice. Liao Yen, who was originally calm, narrowed his eyes. When did he go behind him? The thought flashed across his mind as Liao Yen turned around to deal with him. It was a fatal problem to leave his back to the enemy. Even though he knew that the other party's speed was somewhat ridiculous, Even though he knew that he might not be able to do anything, he still had to try his best to save himself. But when he turned around, what he saw was a fist. This fist seemed to occupy his entire world. Chapter 38. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Summoning from Death Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios, no, that's impossible. Liao Yen did not believe that the other party could deliver a fatal wound with one punch. Boom. However, he was wrong. His fist went straight for Liao Yan's head. In an instant, Liao Yen lost consciousness. He no longer felt anything. There was no time for him to even feel fear. It was too fast for him to react. Bang! Blood mist scattered outwards, falling like red rain. Jianlan didn't pay any attention to Liao Yen, who was lying on the ground with half his body left. What he needed to care about now was the others. He was worried that those people would run away. There was a golden core cultivator among them, so it would be very troublesome for him if they ran away. However, as an essence soul cultivator, as long as he did not underestimate the other party, it was impossible for them to escape too far even if they were to escape separately. It wouldn't cause any trouble either. Even if that was the case, Jianlan would still go all out. After all, accidents wouldn't happen only when you were ready. However, the other party's reaction surprised Jianlan. These people did not flee, nor did they attack immediately. However, he sensed that a powerful Dharma treasure was coming towards him. They didn't prepare it in advance. They only decided to use it because I attacked. They sure think highly of me. But it's really dangerous as well. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, he tried to dodge the Dharma treasure. However, it was hard to dodge. At that moment, the others had all surrounded him. A circular Dharma treasure opened up a path in front of them. There were 4 of them in total. 3 men and 1 woman. A middle-aged man led the group. His cultivation was mid-stage of the Golden Core realm. There was 1 early-stage Golden Core cultivator and 2 late-stage Foundation Establishment cultivators. It looks like we really can't keep you around. With the realm lock circle, it's useless even if you've perfected the Golden Core realm. The middle-aged man charged towards Jianlan. The other party already knew there were some abnormalities, so he definitely couldn't let him live. Furthermore, given Jianlan's young age, he was at most a mid-stage Golden Core cultivator. After all, the other party was wearing the Kunlun disciple uniform and definitely wasn't some deacon or elder. Jianlan frowned. He didn't look at those people. Instead, he focused on the realm lock circle. According to the literal explanation, this thing would seal his cultivation realm. But it was only effective against Golden Core cultivators. What a pity. He was an essence soul cultivator. Whoosh! The realm lock circle headed straight for Jianlan. Jianlan didn't sit back and do nothing. He took a step forward and his strength began to manifest. The power of 6 bulls erupted forth. Jianlan appeared in front of the realm lock circle. He stretched out his hand and directly resisted the realm lock circle. However, he was disappointed. He felt that the strength of the realm lock circle was much weaker than he had expected. In the blink of an eye, Jianlan had the realm lock circle in his hand. Jianlan looked at those people and said softly, "This is what you're relying on." Crack. As soon as Jianlan finished speaking, the realm lock circle was crushed to bits by Jianlan. The 4 people who had charged over were stunned. Why did the realm lock circle fall into the hands of the other party in the blink of an eye? Not only that, this person actually crushed the realm lock circle. You're not at the Golden Core stage. The middle-aged man finally came to his senses. He started to panic. They had to get away. He never imagined that a young disciple would have reached the essence soul stage. He was definitely a disciple of close to 100 years. The Kunlun apparel changed once every 100 years and the cycle would only repeat after 1,000 years. It was clear at a glance when he had entered the sect. What a pity. I've disappointed all of you. Jiang Lan spoke calmly. However, by the time he finished speaking, he had already arrived in front of the middle-aged man. Why would he waste time talking while standing? He could speak and act at the same time. The other party was a golden core cultivator. He wouldn't give him a chance. He could take out the realm lock circle this time. He could have Dharma treasures that could deal with essence soul cultivators next time. Therefore, he could not hold back. On the other hand, the middle-aged man who saw Jiang Lan making a move was terrified. In an instant, he understood Liao Yen. A huge force was coming towards him. The incomparably powerful fist almost covered the world from his eyes. A terrifying aura threatened to tear his body apart. No, no. Absolutely not. The middle-aged man wanted to roar angrily and retaliate, but he couldn't do it. The only thing he could do was wait for the attack to land on him. He couldn't react in time. Boom. Jiang Lan punched the middle-aged man. The boundless force sent the middle-aged man flying. When flying in the air, he discovered that his body was disintegrating and turning into a bloody mist. Intense pain spread throughout his body. Before he could scream out in pain or let out an indignant roar, he had turned into a bloody mist. Bang! The blood mist diffused into the air. After finishing off the mid-stage golden core cultivator, Jiang Lan turned to look at the other three. Facing Jiang Lan's gaze, the three people subconsciously took a step back in fear. The realm lock circle was crushed by the other party's finger, and the mid-stage golden core cultivator was killed with just one punch from him. There was nothing fancy. No time was wasted. The other party was decisive and would never show mercy. This type of person was too terrifying. His talent was also terrifying. Who exactly did they offend? Fellow Taoist, let's talk. We can give you spirit stones or Dharma treasures, said the early-stage golden core cultivator immediately. He looked terrified. It was impossible to escape. Do you have any Dharma treasures that can deal with essence soul cultivators? Jiang Lan asked. No, we don't, the early-stage golden core cultivator immediately replied. At this moment, Jiang Lan arrived before the woman. There was a rune flickering in this woman's hand, as if it was about to be activated. It seems like you do. Jiang Lan's voice rang right beside the woman's ears. The woman looked at Jiang Lan and suddenly heard the call of death. Chapter 39. You are listening at novelfull.audio. God of Slaughter Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. The woman looked at Jiang Lan with fear in her eyes. She knew that the other party had found out. She also knew that the other party would definitely kill her. But she was so close. She was so close. If she had a little more time, she might have been able to finish this person off. But the person before her did not give her any chances. The opponent began to attack. Jiang Lan naturally didn't hesitate in the slightest. He directly grabbed the shining hand, instantly crushing it. Splat! The blood mist diffused into the air. The rune had disappeared. Then, he began to attack the woman. He wanted to kill her in one blow. Everyone was stunned when they saw Jiang Lan approach the woman. Before they could react, the woman's hand had been crushed. Do it. Kill him. The early-stage golden core cultivator no longer thought about it. The other party would not let him off, and he would not beg for mercy either. Furthermore, he wanted to save that woman. However. Boom. A fist went by and the golden core cultivator watched helplessly as the woman turned into a bloody mist. Do you know who she is? The golden core cultivator roared. In the blink of an eye, Jiang Lan appeared in front of the golden core cultivator. His voice was calm. I know. She's someone who wants to kill me. You are, too. In the next moment, the man was greeted by Jiang Lan's fist. Boom. As the blood mist diffused into the air, Jiang Lan arrived before the last man. The moment he saw Jiang Lan, the man turned and fled in fright. God of slaughter. This was a god of slaughter. It was impossible for immortals to be like this. This person never used any divine powers or spells, and he didn't make any unnecessary movements. It was a one-hit kill, and they were all just ordinary punches. He killed them like dogs. And they were lambs waiting to be slaughtered. The late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator turned around and opened his mouth, wanting to call for help and attract the attention of others. Perhaps there was still a chance of survival. Even if it was only a slim chance of survival. But the man's fist penetrated him. A surge of power crashed into his body. In the end, he completely lost consciousness. Jiang Lan withdrew his fist and began to scan his surroundings. After confirming that there were no problems, he withdrew some of his power. However, he was still on full alert. He did not want to fail unexpectedly. Then, he walked up to the rabbit. More and more cracks appeared on the rabbit's chest, as if its entire body was about to be covered in cracks. In the end, it was incinerated by these fiery cracks. Jiang Lan looked at it as it looked back. The rabbit turned around with difficulty to look at the demoness beside him, before looking at Jiang Lan pleadingly. As if to say, don't kill her. She saw nothing. Jiang Lan looked at him and took out a shining Dharma treasure. It was the immortal binding rope, pseudo. The immortal binding rope then flew toward the rabbit. Not long after, the immortal binding rope entered the rabbit's body. Forget what you saw today. The immortal binding rope will imprison everything you know about me. If someone were to forcefully search your memories one day, the immortal binding rope would take your life. It would do so if you say it yourself as well. Do you understand? Jiang Lan's calm voice entered the rabbit's ears. The rabbit looked at Jiang Lan, its eyes full of disbelief. It wasn't that it couldn't believe that he had used such a restriction on him. Rather, it could not believe that the other party did not kill it to silence it. Jiang Lan glanced at the rabbit before turning to leave. Although the immortal binding rope was a fake, the rabbit would not be able to escape the fatal blow of the immortal binding rope unless it became an immortal. Not even immortals could remove it from the rabbit. Even if the rabbit became an immortal and it wanted to break free from the rope's control, it needed to become an advanced immortal. Jiang Lan left as he didn't plan to bother about the other party's life or death. Whether they lived or died depended on their good fortune. The rabbit watched as Jiang Lan left. It crawled towards the people who were killed, found something, and then swallowed it. A light flashed past and the rabbit returned to its human form. It was a man. Without hesitation, he went to the demoness, picked her up, and was about to leave. However, he didn't take more than 2 steps before putting the demoness to the side. Then, he knelt down in the direction Jiang Lan left in and kowtowed 3 times. If one day we live and become great demons, and if Kunlun were to be met with disaster and Senior would be in danger. We, husband and wife, will do anything to repay your kindness. Then, the man got up and left quickly with the demoness in his arms. What they needed to do now was survive. To live an ignoble life. The sky was dark. Jiang Lan didn't walk fast on the way back to Kunlun. He wanted to see if anyone was watching him. He did see a few people on the way. However, they were all disciples of Kunlun Mountain. He barely knew anyone in Kunlun. Not many people knew him either. Hence, they did not disturb each other. After a long time, Jiang Lan returned to Kunlun. I guess there aren't any more people. Jiang Lan heaved a sigh of relief. He wanted to go back and cultivate. His essence soul was not safe either. He had to cultivate the void refinement realm as soon as possible and seek the path to immortal ascension. If he had not advanced to the E realm today, he would have been in a passive position even if he was going to be fine. This would affect his future plans. After coming out for a while, Jiang Lan understood some things. He couldn't show mercy to his enemies, and he couldn't look down on strangers who didn't interact with him. Because the other party might have far exceeded his imagination. If he could conceal his cultivation, others could do the same. He had to maintain his initial thoughts. He should not underestimate anyone just because his cultivation level was higher. Chapter 40. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Similar divine powers are not divine powers after all. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios, why did you suddenly bring me wine? On the peak of the 9th summit, Mo Jingdong received 2 bottles of good wine from Jiang Lan and asked curiously. Disciple comprehended the rainbow auspicious clouds. Jiang Lan spoke. This was also considered good news. Mo Jingdong laughed as if he was not surprised. I was wondering who attracted the rainbow light during the day. However, the rainbow auspicious clouds needs to be tested a few times. Similar divine powers meant that they aren't divine powers after all. There were disadvantages to rainbow auspicious clouds. Sometimes good luck can turn into bad luck. The higher the cultivation level, the easier it is to control. Jiang Lan still wasn't clear about this, but he didn't know who to test it on. Using himself could easily affect his cultivation. After all, his cultivation level was not high. Most of it would probably be bad luck. Aren't there 3 more people at the entrance to the Netherworld cave? Mo Jingdong asked casually. Jiang Lan was silent. However, he did not want to have any interactions with others and affect his cultivation. Oh right, there are also peanuts. Jiang Lan handed the peanuts to Mo Jingdong. I have something I don't understand about the peanuts. At the inn, the boss wanted to give me peanuts at first, but when I said that I was a disciple of the 9th summit, he suddenly refused. But in the end, he gave even more. Why is that? Mo Jingdong smiled. He didn't care about the peanuts. After receiving the peanuts, he started to talk about Jiang Lan's cultivation. You're already at the perfected foundation establishment realm. Don't be in a hurry to advance. I'm contacting a senior. Who would help make your progress of condensing a golden core much easier. The golden core realm is difficult to begin with. Sometimes, failure is inevitable. Disciple understands. Jiang Lan lowered his head. Actually, condensing a golden core for the first time was the easiest. It was harder in the later parts. His master told him this because he did not want to give him too much pressure. How could he, who often read books, not know about such minor knowledge? Jiang Lan left the mountain peak. He was planning to return to cultivate. As for his proficiency of the rainbow auspicious clouds, he had an idea. If he didn't want to have anything to do with Ao Longyu and the others, then he would use the vegetative egg instead. His egg was still a living creature. It should work, too. When he returned to the entrance of the Netherworld cave, Jiang Lan discovered that the 3 of them were already cultivating. They sat within the array formation, affected by the Netherworld aura. Even though they didn't look too good, the circulation of their energy was very stable. Therefore, there was no danger. The effect is similar to the godly training mirror. Jiang Lan's cultivation speed was much faster after using the godly training mirror. Moreover, his innate talent was not high. He needed a long time. These people should be able to advance their essence souls in a few years. After all, their cultivation levels were not low. As he passed by them, Jiang Lan took another look at the array formation patterns beneath Jingting. It still seemed wrong. Jiang Lan wasn't sure what kind of effect this slight difference would have. He was not proficient in array formations. He had only acquired a few occasionally when he signed in. Also, he had read a lot of books in the ninth summit, and had the influence of the Taoist scripture. Therefore, he more or less understood a little. After that, Jiang Lan returned to the netherworld cave. As soon as he came back, he cast the rainbow auspicious clouds on the vegetative egg. The rainbow light fell and surrounded the entire egg. Then, the light disappeared. Jiang Lan didn't feel anything when he used the rainbow auspicious clouds. If there wasn't any feeling, it was probably bad luck. He would cultivate first and come back tomorrow to see if there were any changes to the egg. He had just advanced to the essence soul realm, so Jiang Lan needed to improve many things. The 9 steps of heavenly travel required improvement. The power of 9 bulls should be able to increase the power of 7 bulls. He also needed to familiarize himself with some spells. However, he would use them within a small area. With the help of the netherworld aura, it wouldn't affect the outside world. A month passed in the blink of an eye. During this month, Jiang Lan had never walked out of the netherworld cave, and neither had the 3 people outside entered. However, Jiang Lan knew that they were outside. Jiang Lan used a month to familiarize himself with the essence soul realm. The power of 9 bulls had also reached the strength of 7 bulls. However, he had just acquired it, so his control over his strength was not perfect. After all, the power of 7 bulls made him a little apprehensive. He had switched to other spells and physical techniques, but none of them could compare to the power of 7 bulls. It was not a power that an early stage essence soul cultivator could possess. Jiang Lan felt somewhat at ease. At the very least, if he was strong enough, it meant that he could deal with danger calmly. The 9 steps of heavenly travel was currently at the 7th step. He should be able to improve it further. He had also familiarized himself with the rest. Because it had only been a month, it was not enough time. He would still need another 2 months to improve himself and familiarize himself with what he needed to familiarize. The main reason he stopped cultivating today was to clean up the 9th summit's main hall. Some things in the 9th summit were done by him. He had to do it once every few days. Fortunately, they do not take up a lot of time. It was an order from his master. Most likely, he was worried about him staying in the netherworld cave for too long, thus the need to head out and relax. However, Jiang Lan felt that he should ask his master to check if there were any mental demons at the same time during this trip. Recently, he felt a little uncomfortable whenever he casted the rainbow auspicious clouds on the vegetative egg. He suspected that it had something to do with the progress, but it was better to ask and be assured.